Committee to order. Thank you all for being here. Is there any general public participation? Seeing no members of the public who wish to speak, I will open the budget hearing. Is there official steps I need to take to open that budget hearing, or is it open because I said so? I said so, so it's open. The town operating budget for FY23 will be $37,722,544,000. The Acton portion of the ABRSD assessment will be $69,689,255,000. The Finance Committee has already discussed these numbers. Do any members of the public have any comment before we move to approve this budget? Seeing none, I will take a motion to approve. I will close the hearing. I'll take a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent. I will now take a motion to approve the budget.
So moved.
We gotta do a real motion.
Got to do two.
Real motion, real language?
Where's the,
You do the town, I'll do the school.
where are the numbers?
Steve's on it.
All right, let Steve do that. He's better with that thing than me.
I move that we recommend the town operating budget, which is Article 4 on this list, in the amount of $37,722,544.
Second.
Excellent. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
One opposed. Any abstentions? Excellent. The motion passes. Moving on. That was nice of them.
I move that we recommend the Acton portion of the Acton-Boxell Regional School District assessment in the amount of $69,689,255.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. One opposed and abstentions. Excellent, that passes. Thank you. Anything further? Do we need to approve the Minuteman as well?
It's one of the ones on the, it's one of the articles, so we might as well do it. We might as well do it now if you're ready to, if we have final number, which looks like we do. So I move that we recommend the Minuteman Regional School District's assessment Acton share in the amount of $2,841,323.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It was unanimous. Thank you. All right, excellent. Mr. Martin, do you know where Mr. Mangiarotti is? Me too. It's going to be a very short meeting about the warrant without him.
Madam Chair, I got an email from John. He asked me to cover him until 8. He's in library director interviews.
Until 8, okay. If nobody objects, after our warrant preview, we were going to discuss some citizens petitions, and I believe we have a member here in the audience who has a citizens petition they would wish to speak to. So we'll take one of those petitions now. Are you here for a citizens petition? You both are? Okay, I'll let you all decide who wants to go now. Sure, can you turn on your microphone? No problem. And let us know who you are.
My name is Bob Van Meter, 2 Half Moon Hill, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Housing and Climate Justice for Acton. on behalf of our citizens petition for electric vehicle charging for multifamily buildings. As I think many people are aware, 47% of greenhouse gas emissions for Acton are from passenger vehicles. 25% of Acton's households live in multifamily buildings. Many of those buildings, the residents will have very limited to no access to electric vehicle charging. And there are multiple problems that have faced people who live in those buildings, kinds of buildings, whether they're condominium or rental, who want access to charging. And by and large, if you're driving an electric vehicle, having access to charging at your home is important if you're going to be using it on a regular basis. So this citizens petition has two parts. It's non-binding. The first part calls upon the planning board to consider a provision, a measure to adapt our zoning code to require that new construction multifamily buildings have electric vehicle charging infrastructure in their parking facilities, and also substantial rehabilitations above a certain threshold. Similar to the Americans with Disabilities Act applies in rehabs above 25% of the assessed value of properties. The second part of the citizens petition calls upon the town to prioritize creating programs and incentives for existing multifamily buildings to add infrastructure by seeking funding resources from the Commonwealth, from Mass Save, from electric utilities, from the federal government, to create incentives or underwrite part of the cost of those infrastructure changes in existing multifamily buildings. So it's pretty simple, two parts to it, and we would urge that the Finance Committee support it. It doesn't have any budgetary impact in the immediate term. It does call upon the town to seek resources from other sources going forward in order to subsidize EV charging. And I guess I would note that within the last 3 or 4 days, the Boston Globe has covered the issue of electric vehicle infrastructure in 3 different articles, including one that I believe appeared on Saturday, noting that Massachusetts needs at least 750,000 electric vehicles on the road by 2030. We currently have about, I think, 25 or 30,000 registered electric vehicles. And so Acton would be helping lead the way toward the necessary adoption of electric vehicles. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Van Meter. Does anybody have any questions? Dave?
Hi, thank you for bringing this to our attention and taking time to speak with us this evening. You know, just a couple questions is, you know, is there demand from residents currently in these units for charging stations?
There is some demand. I don't think it's overwhelming, but I think the reality is that the demand for electric vehicles overall is to some degree dependent on people's perceptions of their ability to find charging.
Sure.
And and I think it's also true that there has, up until very recently, the cost of electric vehicles has been a barrier in and of itself. By and large, residents of multifamily properties have lower incomes than homeowners, and many electric vehicles have been fairly expensive. There are some subsidies available. We believe there will be more subsidies going forward and there are some states that have significantly higher penetration of electric vehicles and have created incentives for low and moderate income residents of those states, California in particular.
Do you know what the EV penetration is in Massachusetts currently?
Well, if there are 30,000 electric vehicles, and there are 7 million households, and I guess there must be, I think there must be at least 3 or 4 million. It's about 1%, I think, right now.
So it'd be fair to say then if the income mix in these units is skewing lower and away from EV, it's probably well under 1%
Yeah.
of residents that would have
Yeah.
a need for this.
But, I think if we're going to get to the goal of 750,000, we're going to have to move pretty quickly over the next 8 years.
Sure. And maybe just one more is who would bear the cost of this? Would it be the unit owners themselves? I mean, essentially, if they're rental units, that would be passed on to them ultimately.
Well, if they're using the charge, presumably they would bear the cost, depending on how it's structured. I mean, some EV charging is in public sites is free. I doubt if it would be free in a multifamily building. So, it would be perhaps the infrastructure would be put in by one of the companies that's doing that, and then you'd have to use a credit card or some kind of a fob, which like EVgo has a fob. And so the cost of the electricity would be borne by the user of the vehicle, and in general, the cost of electricity to run an electric vehicle is less than what you would be paying for gasoline.
Yeah. What about the installation of the station?
So that's what we think there needs to be investment by, perhaps both by the owner and by the public sector. That's generally been seen as an important priority if we're going to address climate change. What we had mentioned as a possibility would be some kind of a matching grant program. So if the town were able to secure, say, a few $1 million from Mass Save or from the Commonwealth, and then create some kind of 50% matching grant using those funds, they could say, okay, if you're the owner of this apartment complex and you're willing to spend the money on installing charging infrastructure, we will match you dollar for dollar with these funds that we have raised. We don't, obviously we don't know what funds are going to be available in the next few years, although, there are resources already available to support some of these initiatives.
Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's nothing in the bylaws today that prevents a landlord of an apartment complex or a condo association from putting in those charging units today.
No, there is nothing that prevents that, as far as I understand it. But there isn't really, it's, there's, no, I wouldn't say there's no demand, but I don't think that, one of the members of our group is a resident at Audubon Hill, and she has pushed very hard with the condo association for installation of EV charging infrastructure there, and they have been unwilling to take it on. I think if there was leadership and from the town and a move in that direction, I think that, there are many, there are condo associations and there are landlords who might be willing to step forward.
I don't know too much about EV charging units, but is that a standardized piece of gear? One size fits all?
Unfortunately, it's not completely standardized as of now. I drive a Chevy Bolt. The Chevy Bolt, the Tesla company has created their own system of charging, which we who drive Chevy Bolts are not able to use. But people who drive Teslas can use the charging infrastructure that we use. So, the level 2 charger that most people use for non-Tesla vehicles is pretty standard. There's also fast chargers that are standard for non-Teslas. So if you drive on the main turnpike, you can do a fast charge at the Kennebunk rest area and charge, pretty quickly there. I have a level 2 charger in my garage, and, I can charge my Bolt overnight pretty fully. But I can't charge that much if I'm parking at a, shopping mall for half an hour or an hour. That's why at-home charging is good. When most of the charging infrastructure that exists right now is level 2 chargers. The fast chargers are few and far between, and they're more expensive to install.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Steve?
Sure. So I live in a condominium, and we put in chargers a couple of years ago. And to Mike's question, there's all sorts of different vendors out there, and you have to interview about 6 or 7 of them. Some don't require any upfront investment, but then they take all the money. Some ask you to put up some money, and then you can set a billing rate for the electricity. Then they take some and you get some. So there's all sorts of arrangements. Our biggest obstacle was Eversource. They're just impossible to deal with. Despite the fact that there was an awful lot of people saying they wanted to do it, they don't get used as much as I would have thought they would have in the condominium our size. But the other thing the condominium boards have to deal with is if you go with one that's on a network, I think we're on Blink or something, then you are drawing people into your area that are looking for a charging station, much like they'd be looking for a gas station. So we had some residents that found that troublesome, but again, we went ahead and did it. I think it was a good decision.
Adam?
Yeah, thank you. I'm concerned with the wording of Part 2 of the resolution because it sounds as though it's putting the onus on both the taxpayers to pay for part of the installation cost, as well as putting the onus on the town to pursue available applicable resources from state and federal agencies. So I don't know if you can speak to that, whether that's the specific plan or...
It certainly is putting the onus on the town to pursue resources, and I think that, so the wording that I think you're speaking of, the town should encourage the creation of charging stations by pursuing available and applicable resources from state and federal agencies. And so I believe that in order to meet the needs for electrification of the economy and reduction of greenhouse gases, there will need to be public investment. And one of the places there needs to be public investment is in the infrastructure that allows us to electrify transportation. And so I don't think there's any reason not to kind of say that and pursue that. We're not assuming that the town's taxpayers by themselves are going to bear this cost, but we do believe that this is an important and necessary item for public investment.
Jason?
While the goal of trying to reduce greenhouse gases may be a laudable one, it's an impossible thing to measure. It's impossible to say exactly what it's exactly how many people are going to sign up for this program, how much minds are going to be changed, how much we're going to save. And in the end, what you're asking for is a subsidy for a very small slice of the population. Where you're asking for a matching grant, where you're asking for a matching grant, that is a straight dollar, you said dollar for dollar. Even if it's 50%, that's still a subsidy for an incredibly small group of citizens for an unmeasurable gain. I'm not against having a recommendation or a requirement for new growth, but I also am not keen to try and force this on existing owners of existing infrastructure. If indeed this is a good economic turn for the individual owner, then they will invest in this themselves. Furthermore, adding charge points to a condo or to an apartment building, in theory, should be a great selling feature to help draw people in. So I don't see why this is something that should be borne on the backs of the taxpayer of the town.
Maybe it will be a selling point in the future, but I think that, as in many things, you need to have leadership in order to build the market for that. And I think, there isn't, obviously one of the things that has become a selling feature in real estate is energy conservation or energy efficiency of buildings, and to some extent the renewable energy character. There really isn't a standard yet around electric vehicle access in multifamily properties. So for sale properties, you sometimes see the energy performance of a home is part of the marketing. I think, we're in a crisis. We cannot wait for the market to drive this. We need to lead the market, I believe. And I think we're not forcing anyone to do this. We urge the town to consider creating an incentive program. And the town may decide that the best way to incent this is to kind of create a concierge service at the level of the sustainability office to make it easy for condominium associations and multifamily owners to apply directly for subsidies from Mass Save instead of raising the resources themselves. But I do think that there needs to be encouragement at the town level, and there needs to be investment by the public sector in order to make this happen.
Do you have some sort of idea of how many per unit, if it's 10 units,
We have
100 units?
I mean, I think we have had some conversations with citizens who are pursuing this in Brookline and some other communities. And we think that will, I think maybe it's one EV charger for every 20 parking spaces. Maybe it's for every 10 parking spaces. I think that it's probably going to be somewhere in that ballpark initially, and maybe it ratchets up after 3 years or 5 years or something like that.
Okay, and this would be like a leading initiative. This isn't being done yet in other communities in Massachusetts.
It would be a leading initiative. I know that it's being discussed in several communities right now. And, I think, and we have included language about consistent with the building codes.
Okay, all right, we have a couple more questions and then we'll move on. Go ahead, Roland.
Thanks, Bob. How come you haven't looked at mandating it or encouraging, like the owners of Gould's Plaza or Nagog Park, all the stores are Crossroads and Beijing, Tokyo and all that, and Staples, that plaza in there, and Roach Brothers and all those to put charging stations in? I mean, people are driving there, they're driving their Teslas because they see them, and you know, I mean, I bought a new vehicle, but I couldn't afford to buy a Tesla. So I bought a hybrid, but it's an F-150, so it's not as fuel efficient as a Prius.
Right.
So I think when you look at the numbers, yeah, how many Teslas are there in Acton?
A lot.
30?
A lot.
30? Well, if you're looking at 1% of the population, so what he's, hold on. He said it's 1% of the population has electric cars. The population of Acton is 24,500.
Yeah, we're most of that apparently, because there are Teslas everywhere.
There,
Well, I see Teslas going through, but that doesn't mean they necessarily live here. They could live in Boxborough, they could live in Concord, they could live in other communities.
Regardless, what's your question?
So why are we just limiting this to multifamilies, multi-residential complexes, instead of saying to the property owners, hey, you could do this too?
we're not limiting it to that. I think
Well,
this
that's how
is,
the article is written. It says
well, this is a,
multifamily housing, it
Right.
doesn't say shopping centers.
I think this particular article is focused on multifamily. There are many parts of the town's climate action plan that would encourage also the development of charging infrastructure in commercial properties as well.
Mike, did you still have a question, or are you all set?
Well, like, I just got my bill from Eversource today. My house is 40 years old, but, almost 40 years old. But I was able to save, or produce, I was able to use 17% less energy this year than I did last year. Through steady improvements to the house, insulation, new windows, new roof, solar panels, things like that. So we all have to be, I think, stewards of the land. And we have to, energy is a limited resource, even though it's natural gas and electricity that fuels these charging stations. Energy comes from somewhere. It doesn't just magically appear. But I think if the, I'm a big fan of free enterprise. If the condo association or a builder or a mall owner, a mall tenant association wants to put in these charging stations, I think we should encourage them, because it is a good thing. Although, calculating the right number of charging units in a public space could be problematic. But I'm also concerned about the wave. It seems like the trend is towards electric vehicles. I've had Minis Coopers since 2001, and Mini is saying by 2030, all their Minis will be electric. But I'm also concerned with, I got Elon or Musk saying he might develop something with fuel cells, energy cells that make these electric vehicles obsolete. So we should do what we can, but I don't know if the town should morally support this, but I don't know about financially, because I'm saying that only because this is not especially the years that the immediate next couple of years could be very difficult for the town and the country itself. There won't be a lot of extra funds to do this. And if the federal government wants to kick in sponsorship, and Joy Edison or Eversource, whatever they're called these days, as an energy producer, should be highly encouraged to create these subsidies to the users. And, resisting now, but I would put pressure on them, not on the town, to produce these subsidies.
Well, thank you. I think that's what this does. It encourages the town to actively pursue these kinds of resources. It doesn't, and with the hope that they will be available from some of these other sources. And it doesn't require existing multifamily owners or condominium associations to do this, but it encourages them. So,
All right, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
yep.
Mr. Mangiotti, would you care to join us? Then do I let them all go?
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks, sorry for the delay. I was in library director interviews.
No problem. All right, Mr. Mangiotti has offered to go through this draft warrant with us and help us through any questions we have. So if you're good to just start and kind of go through them?
Yes, so we worked very hard this year to try to get, we always provide information early, but we tried to get a comprehensive package of the warrant articles as they sit today to you as early as possible. And here we are almost 6 weeks before town meeting, or maybe 5, whatever it is, it's early. And so there's some language in here that's still being refined and revised and updated in numbers that will continue to be finalized. But we have 57 articles. I want to thank Mark Hald for all the work he did over the weekend and recently to get this thing in decent shape. The first 3 articles are pretty standard things that town meeting addresses. The fourth is the operating budget, which I believe you just discussed. The 5th is our one of the capital articles. This one focuses on the articles, the projects that are being recommended to be appropriated from free cash. They're listed here. They are from the capital improvement plan that we published on November 15th and includes some revisions that were made as part of the budget process to where we are here. The first is stormwater management. Second is asset management. We're looking at net zero vehicle replacement program, some repairs, or a new tight tank for the fire station, alarm systems for the other fire stations, a public shade tree assessment, a dam management program, and a public art plan for $304,000 total.
And we've sort of talked about these throughout the budget process. Does anybody have any questions about these specifically? Steve?
Yeah, John, help me out again. How many dams do we have in this town?
So during the capital presentation, and I think somebody asked that question, it might have been you, and we're going to add that to this booklet next year. When we asset inventory, we'll have an inventory of dams. But there's more than a few. And this one is particularly focused, the project that we're doing this year is focused particularly on
Bellows Farm.
Bellows Farm, yeah. So we're obligated to keep those in good shape, and we want to make sure we have a good plan in place to do so.
Mike?
Yeah, I have a question about your vehicle replacement program. The goal is to 100% electric?
Yeah, we think we can get there in 10 years. I think, right, if we, I don't know if we could do that all. All the vehicles that we use aren't available in the electric models right now, but more and more are coming online every year. And so over 10 years or probably sooner, we could do that, yes.
Well, the follow-up question is that a wise thing that 100%, whatever, if something catastrophic happened and our energy grid went out due to a severe winter storm, a nor'easter hits Acton, and we get 2 feet of snow. Charging stations won't charge, means our vehicles won't move. It just seems like if it was a number other than 100%, it might be wise. Not having all our eggs in one basket, as the farmer would say. Like a hybrid vehicle or something, it's just, I have an issue with 100%. It just seems like there's no margin of error.
Yeah, it's certainly something that we'll continue to review. And at the request or the urging or the suggestion, I guess I should say, of Finance Committee members, we're doing a leasing program, which allows us to, if we find that the type of fuel or propulsion for these vehicles isn't what we want, we can trade them back in and get something that we want. So it's over, it's just, this is a multi-year investment to turn over our fleet. I don't think we're going to be replacing our huge dump trucks next year or anytime soon. We're going to do it when we can. Right now, there's not an option that we're aware of for us to do that. So
Like, I see leasing is good, because I think potentially some of these electric vehicles, I understand, could be very expensive to repair. And if something goes wrong with one battery, it's, you're up the creek.
Dave, go ahead.
Just to follow on that one, so it sounds like the leased vehicles will be treated as a recurring capital item going forward and not part of the operating budget, is that right?
Yeah, so in the capital plan, we've proposed investing annually. I think we're looking to do a little bit more than 50,000. We're looking to do 70,000, and then 80, and then 90 over the next 10 years just to continue to make investments and leverage the value of trade-ins to offset the cost of the acquisition of the leases, and continue doing that over a multi-year period.
Okay, no, I understand that. I was just curious. It sounds like the decision would be to continue to treat them as capital, not an operating item. That would be a part of the recurring operating budget.
Yeah, I think that they have been, for the most part, identified as a capital investment and funded the way we fund capital, but we certainly would look at that going forward if there was a need to.
Okay, I'm just curious. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see. Article 6 is the capital projects that we're proposing to borrow as part of how we'd make that investment. So the first one is an investment in the sidewalk program. The second is a investment in the River Street Dam project. And the third is the bridge design construction program to help multiple bridges get ready for construction. And the fourth is intersection and complete streets projects, which we've identified in the warrant, so people know exactly which ones we're planning to do next year. And all those items are 2.3 million, but the actual debt service is a number less than that, which I have somewhere, which was in the budget recommendation.
Jason?
Quick question on subsection D. Why is there money that has to do with the Kelly's Corner project in here at all? Shouldn't that be part of what the Kelly's Corner plan is? Why is this accretive to what's already being done for Kelly's Corner? And why would it come out of here? Why would it not come out of the Kelly's Corner monies that have already been approved and part of what we're leveraging from the state?
If you're referring to the West Acton Village Complete Streets study, It's really just making an appropriate connection to the Kelly's Corner project. It's not really doing anything in Kelly's Corner.
So extending it farther?
No, it's just trying to tie in the Complete Streets measures that we're putting into Kelly's Corner and trying to extend them in a way that makes sense to people that are using the road into the next village.
Well, I mean,
Extend the design theme. Kelly's Corner is Kelly's Corner. This is West Acton.
Okay.
So it doesn't feel like you've gone from one type of area streets to a different one. We're trying to smooth the connection, bike
Yeah, so
lanes
people,
and such.
someone on a bicycle will have a similar experience as they enter into different parts of the community and know what to expect in terms of the measures we have in place.
Okay. Dave?
The sidewalk program, if I recall, this was the $18 million one. Is that correct?
The total backlog of priority sidewalk segments is approximately 17 million, and this is an attempt to get started on design work to help us plan for a larger investment in future years.
I guess my question is, how will that be presented to town meeting? Is the presumption that this is all moving forward? That this is all, like, the town meeting, like, will there be a presentation detailing what actually this 750 is initially for and then subsequent expected expenditures?
Yes, we will certainly provide detail about the sidewalk segments that we'd be focusing on. And primarily it's the the top 10 or the
Sure.
11 at this point, to make sure that we get those fully designed and then start working on construction. The amount of money being proposed here, it wouldn't be enough to do construction of many more than one or two of the segments, so we think it's more advantageous to get the designs further along to help have more definitive costs for a future request, instead of saying we think it's going to cost about $500,000, we'll know more exactly what it will cost, and also put us in position to seek other funding by having shovel-ready projects ready to present to state and federal folks who are
I guess
offering earmarks.
I guess my question is, how will the financial request be presented to town? Will it, as far as the fiscal '23 budget goes, there's a $750,000 capital item for sidewalk new construction, which involves the line item here, the consultant to oversee design and construction. But will the presentation also entail detailing the full 17 million expected scope of the project? Just so we don't get to FY '24 and '25 and the town says, oh, well, we recall approving 750 and now it's 7.5 million debt exclusion or 17 million debt exclusion.
Yeah, well, I think, we try to provide as much information about what we're planning to do in the future in the 10-year capital plan. We try to provide information about what we think could happen next in terms of providing the number 7.5 million in this article so that people know that this funding will be used to help support that, which could maybe help them make a decision on whether they're interested in doing this in the first place. In terms of the full 17 million, I thought that that would be a lot to try to work towards, and this would be a more appropriate portion of that to try to tackle up front,
Yeah.
at least in the next few years, so that we can take it. Right now, like the current approach has been to take it into very, very small pieces, a few $100,000 a year, which is going to take forever to get to the backlog. So this is an approach to expedite and accelerate the sidewalk building program, which, I've said this before, we don't get a lot of complaints in this organization, but one thing we hear a lot of is we need more sidewalks. And whether or not the people that say that are other people that are going to come to town meeting, I don't know, but we're trying to be responsive to the community and what we're hearing from folks and what they need.
No, I'm not making a judgment on the sidewalk project one way or the other. I'm just simply saying that from a town meeting's perspective, I think having the plan, more of it presented to them rather than, and I do see that you do have 7.5 million debt exclusion in here. But rather, I think will want to understand the full scope of it rather than, a year later, we did 7.5, now we want to do 8.5 or whatever. That was my point. And I'm, again, not taking a position on sidewalks one way or the other right now.
Thank you. That's a good suggestion. As we'll make sure to include some of this information from the capital plan in the
Right.
town meeting presentation,
Precisely.
so that, because not everybody probably has read the capital plan, but we can
Yeah,
show them that
exactly.
page.
That'd be great.
Roland.
Thanks, John. Question, Newtown Road by Simon Willard Culvert, is that where Conant Brook runs under Newtown?
Can I phone a friend?
Sure.
Is that a trick question? Do you know the answer?
No, I'm
No.
I'm curious because I don't see any of the culverts there, because I live on Simon Willard and I turn off there. And what I think it is I've seen when the water table is high, you could see it that it wasn't efficiently going from one side to the other. So it flows, if you're going down Newtown, it flows left to right.
Yeah, so we're looking to do some design work. This would not be the cost to fix it. We're just trying to figure out what the fix would be
What
to
has
make
be,
it.
okay.
Yeah, so we analyze what needs to be done, what measures need to be taken, and then we'd come to a future body and ask for funding to do the actual
Okay.
project.
The other one was when Dave was just talking about sidewalks, is Newtown Road especially needs them, because the sidewalk does stop. You could walk from Main Street down to Simon Willard, and there's some sidewalk, and then it stops, and there's nothing, all the way down till you get to Simon Willard, then it starts again, and goes up, and then it stops. And the other day I saw, I can't believe I saw this, but father's out riding a bike with a very small child. One was on the back of the bike, and then one was riding the bike, and they're right on Newtown Road. It's like you couldn't ride in a neighborhood where, there's not much traffic. But anyway, I see people walking all the time in the middle, in the road, walking their dogs and everything else because there's not enough sidewalk on that road. And people tend to fly down there, but, so that I can see the need that we need, especially in certain areas. And the other one that you had here was, roadway and intersection safety programs. You come to the corner of, coming out of Musket, there's a big tree right there, blocks your sight line. You come down, corner of Newtown, turn on the main right out here. There's things in the way that block your sight line, and some of them are phone poles, as we know. So, I think those also need to be somewhat addressed, and try to see that there's something in the budget to look at and figure out what we need to do and to make our town safer.
Yep, and we work every year to prioritize projects based on, needs that come up like that. And just to address your Newtown Road question, on the priority list that we published detailing the 17.9 million, so it's basically 18. That is a second to last project, estimated at 1,426 feet, estimated at the time that was estimated at 527,000. And so that has been identified as a priority. It is at the bottom of looks like the top 15 or so here, but it is on the list. And, and the way that we work the list is we focus on the ones at the top, but if we have an ability to make progress on other ones on the list, we advance those as well, because there's a lot of hurdles that you encounter, or obstacles rather. Instead of just sitting and waiting for the obstacle to clear, we start working on other ones, which is why we want to be descriptive in the discussion at town meeting with the 750,000, but we also want to have some flexibility to make sure that we can use the funds to invest in the areas that will get us the most value and complete the most segments off of the priority list.
Thank you.
Great, excellent. Thank you, John. I think we can move past 7 and 8 because we've already approved those, and
Okay, 9 is the Community Preservation Program, which I know you had a presentation on recently, and that article is still being finalized by the Community Preservation Committee. 10 is a home rule petition proposed by the Housing Authority that the Select Board has sponsored. This is basically just to give them the ability to simplify their procurement process for identifying the construction entities that will build the project that they're proposing. And this is something that many housing authorities do to make it easier and more cost-effective for them to build public housing.
Okay, and there's no dollars on that. It's just.
It's created, I believe, to help save money for the housing authority. If not money, then at least efficiency and time. But I don't know if there's a dollar value we could associate with this article.
No cost to us, basically, is what you're saying.
It does not cost us anything except for.
We like those articles.
Yep.
So,
Go ahead, Mike.
so this is the Kennedy property. They have senior housing.
Yes.
They have now named it, McManus?
McManus Manor, located at 362 and 364 Main.
Yeah, it's the Kennedy property. I
Yep.
noticed today that the shed with all the garden stuff is gone on the Kennedy property, so something is happening. It seems like it's taken a long time for that housing project to get off the ground. And so I'm glad, because they had their funding, they had to get their funding together. It's been probably 5 years now.
Yeah, about that. They are seeking financing through the state programs, and they're optimistic that usually it takes 2 or 3 years to get funded, and they're hoping that it may not take as long.
Well, I guess my issue is that land has been, one of our goals years ago was to get that into a productive use as quickly as possible, and it just seems like it's dragging. And I'd like to see them solve this problem and really start breaking ground as soon as possible.
Yep, this article would help.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Number 11 is members of the Historical Commission and other advocates in the community have been working for a few years now to update the archaeology bylaw. And this is that update. It is not a zoning bylaw, it is a general bylaw, just so you know. And they did a pretty comprehensive presentation to the select board at a recent meeting, if you're interested. And I'm sure they'd be willing to come here if you invited them, or if you want me to invite them.
Okay.
Number 12 is changing the dates of town meeting. This is something that we've talked about in different forums, and the select board have decided to put this on the warrant to formally change when we have our town election and our town meeting every year, instead of what we've done in the past to it's to make the election the last week of April and the town meeting the first week in May, generally, depending on when Mondays fall.
Okay.
And Tuesdays.
And this, does that have any cost to us to change that?
No, I mean,
Not really?
there's work involved in updating bylaws and everything, but it's
Right.
nothing,
Sort of folded into regular business? Okay, all right. And this puts us in for greater alignment with Boxborough as well, right? Like, not right on top of them, but closer.
yeah, it's closer to Boxborough's town meeting, and it just gives us a little more breathing room.
Yep.
In terms of where we are in the current fiscal year.
Steve?
Yeah, I think the warrant write-up should include that we would no longer have the first night of town meeting conflicting with the NCAA basketball championship, because it's probably a better reason than the ones we have listed.
Good to know. All right, stormwater revolving. fund.
This Article 13 is just to reflect the organizational change that the Land Use Department is no longer overseeing the stormwater program, and it's the Public Works Department, and we need to update the bylaw that references that.
Okay.
14 is related to the Kelly's Corner project, and 15 is as well. Eventually, the state will be giving us the rights or the ownership of Community Way. It's currently privately held, and as part of this big project, it'll be publicly held by the town. And there's changes to the Main Street layout that need to be approved at town meeting as well.
Is this something we haven't looked at before, or is it just approving the kind of the layout of Kelly's Corner that we've all seen for the last kind of 2
Yeah,
years?
it's not going to change the design, it's just going to, it's formally Article 15 is formally accepting a street that we don't currently own,
Right.
which the select board has already decided to rename it to Carroll Spinney Way when it does take ownership of it.
Right.
I believe in the paperwork, it's still going to be called Community Way, but
Yes, what about, do you know any further about 14?
that's just, no, it's just to revise the street layout. I don't see it, I can provide more detail, but.
I was just curious if it was the street layouts that we've already seen in the planning for the Kelly's Corner project, or if it's something different.
I think those have been proposals which aren't the official street layout,
This would be
and
the
this would
final.
make them the official street layout. So it's those plans put into the actual street layout.
Excellent. Roland?
Does that mean with the islands and stuff like that? Or are you talking about realigning the roads?
It really focuses on the right-of-way and the extent on either side of the street, you know, how far it goes, and it just, I think there's been some changes to that based on the takings that were, we.
That we've already done?
Well, yeah, we just finished the paperwork this week, and the project is going out to bid in May 21st, so
Wow.
it's happening
And construction is a start?
Yeah, when?
before the end of the calendar year.
So we are going to manage to get it in the, started before the end of
Well,
2022?
it's the contractor's decision. If they say, you know what, we're going to wait till the spring, it's up to them, but I hope they'll start it this year.
Okay. I know that was the original plan, but things have happened. Okay, 16?
This is the floodplain maps were updated by the federal government, and we need to reflect those updates in our zoning bylaw.
Just a motion, I'm sure.
Hopefully, yeah, hopefully not.
John, yeah, 14 pages on a consent item is probably a record for our town warrant. Is this something we have no choice about? It
Pretty
comes
much,
down
yeah.
and we have to accept?
Yeah, the EPA, I believe, is the agency, and they said you need to update your maps, and here's why. And then, I can have a more professional description to town meeting, but that's what's
I mean,
happening.
it affects people's property values, but they probably already know that they're in a flood zone, or they should. But yeah, it's a lot of words for something we really don't have a choice.
That's true.
I thought that was FEMA that made those adjustments to the
Does it-
floodplains
Doesn't matter.
quite a while
Well,
ago.
I think it's issued by some insurance group, but it is the FEMA flood map that they're referring to, which has been known to change.
Adam, did you have something you wanted to?
I was just going to ask if that's going to be a lengthy presentation with map presentations and the whole thing, or is it going to be a packet?
It's on the consent, so they're going to read off a whole list of things that nobody likely will have an argument with, and then we vote on them in a block.
In other words, don't hold it, right?
Yeah, don't hold that one.
Yeah, I mean, the summary provides a pretty important sentence. It says, "Failure to adopt the new requirements into Acton zoning bylaw will result in the loss of flood insurance for Acton property owners." So we pretty much have to do it.
Yeah, I'd cut down the length.
All right.
17 is just to update the zoning bylaw to change all the words that say Board of Selectmen to Select Board.
Yep.
Article 18 is updating some references as it relates to solar PV installations. Housekeeping. It's nothing substantive, it's just changing the way it's referred to, things are referred to.
Okay.
19 would give us the ability to pay vendors through direct deposit, which is that's also on consent. 20 is just to finalize the project that took place to Boston Area Gleaners and their use of the town's conservation land. And this is just formalizing a long-term lease, which they currently hold, just a license to use it. So this would allow them to stay there for the long term.
Okay.
21, as part of a project approval, a gift of open space was promised or given to the town, and this is just the town formally accepting that land off of Newtown Road, or on Newtown Road. 22, our state law requires police and fire to live within 15 miles, which is really hurts us from a recruitment standpoint. We try to have increase the diversity of our departments, and that's just one more thing that's making it harder for us to do so. So we'd like to have the ability to set our own residency requirements, and that requires a home rule petition because it's a state law. Well, if the state says no, then we have to just continue following the law. We don't have the ability to negotiate with our unions an appropriate residency requirement. We have to just follow the state law.
So if this is approved, what would happen
If this is
next?
approved, we would meet with the union and say, we think it should be 25 or 30 miles, not 15. And if they agree, that would be the rule instead of the state law.
Have we had any discussion? Like, do we have any sense if they have a feeling about this one way or another, or?
The union leadership that we've talked to supports this, and we intend to get that for sort of to the town meeting or to the voters so that they understand that.
Okay, great.
The Articles 23, 24, 25, and 26 are collective bargaining agreements for a few of our unions. I'm optimistic that we'll have these contracts settled in the next few weeks, but as of yet, they are not. So, and if they are not settled by the time town meeting goes over, the town would just pass over these articles.
Has the process started yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. 27, so the next several are enterprise operations. This one's for communal lot. 28 is for septage disposal. 29 is for the transfer station, 30 is for the sewer enterprise, 31 is for ambulance enterprise, 32 is for transportation enterprise. Those are all the business, we basically, in this town, we run several businesses. In addition to providing general government services, we're also in the parking business, the septic disposal business, the trash and recycling business, and the sewer enterprise and ambulance business. And each of those operations have their own expenses and revenues to support them, in some cases also with a subsidy from the general fund. Article 33 is the revolving funds. Every year we have to set a revenue and expenditure limit for revolving funds, and that's what this article does. 34 is a standard article that allows the select board to accept easements to keep projects moving forward. You know, if they need to put a guy wire on a sidewalk, and it allows them to do that without waiting till the next town meeting to have that authorization.
We vote on that every year, right?
These are standard articles every year. So is 35, which is accepting the money from Chapter 90, insurance proceeds, gifts and grants, federal and state reimbursement, performance bonds, sale of foreclosed properties. Those are all standard articles that we do every year.
Is it Article 37 that is the authority for money like ARPA?
I think ARPA was,
Or is that 38?
ARPA had its own specific authority granted to local jurisdictions. I don't think this article had played into that. Steve may be able to correct me if I'm wrong.
I think you're wrong. I think you're right. I think this grant and gift one is a general blanket, but ARPA came with its own federal guidance and authorization.
Which is able to override the bottom line budget that we normally enforce. I mean, this was a ton of money that all of a sudden, and there was no bringing it to town meeting or anything. It was just a fifth of the overall budget that showed up in one lump sum. And I'm curious where the authorization to use it comes from and if we can do something about it. So I definitely need to see if ARPA is had specific language that overruled the requirement to procure from town, or if we were relying on the verbiage in Articles 37 and 38 to automatically be able to spend that money.
We'll get you something on that.
Because I would like to I'd like to try and amend that if need be. So I need an answer on that, and then I probably need to talk to the town council. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. 42?
So then we're getting into, so 41 is a home rule petition to allow us to advertise for public hearings and legal notices using online. This is something that council is still drafting for us. It's relatively new. If you heard, the local paper is going out of print as of next month, and the requirement to advertise in a newspaper, I think, may be useful for a very small portion of the population. We believe that we have other ways that we can reach residents, and would like to have the ability to use those, and that requires a home rule petition.
Would you still pursue something like Action Unlimited, or would you hope to just move it all digital?
So right now, the state law requires that it goes into a newspaper of general circulation and also this online clearinghouse that newspapers have access to. So Action Unlimited does not meet our understanding is doesn't meet the requirements under that law. And so an example of a home rule petition that we could put forward would be to allow us to use that.
Got it. It's just the only thing that comes to my house regularly, whether I ask for it or not.
Right. 42 is the select board is sponsoring the article related to polystyrene and disposable plastics reduction, and the article that follows that is closely related to that. I believe you had presentations on that recently, those two articles?
We did, yes.
And so 43 would be the checkout bag charge.
Right.
And then 44, this would be a change to a zoning bylaw, which requires 2/3. And this is proposed for non-conforming structures in historic districts. The bylaw now requires greater setbacks for front and side yards. This has led to odd situations within historic districts where a historic structure such as a barn could not be rebuilt at all because there wasn't enough usable land to meet the current setbacks. So this would be addressing issues like that. 45 is to update the zoning bylaw as it relates to accessory dwelling, accessory apartments. This is to make it less restrictive, to promote or to make it easier and simplify the process of having someone add accessory dwelling unit. This is a zoning bylaw requires 2/3.
And we just added this ability within the last couple of years, is that right?
Yeah, I think it's relatively new, and, you know, an example of what's being proposed here is instead of, right now, they're limited to 500 square feet, this would allow them to be up to 800 square feet. And there's other things that are meant to help make it easier for people to consider this as an option to stay in the community or to provide housing options for people in the community.
And so I assume this came up because people started taking advantage of the new bylaw and ran into hurdles?
I think so. I think that there's also the housing production plan that was recently approved by the town, I think, mentions that this is an option that may help folks with needs for housing. And, yeah.
Okay. Questions? No? Good. All right.
46 is a citizen petition, which I'm not sure if the petitioner's here, related to the chapel at the Woodlawn Cemetery. 47, you just heard a presentation on earlier, I believe.
Yeah, we're going to have the citizens petitions. Are there anything else that's not a citizens petition?
I think the remaining articles are citizen petitions.
Okay, so this seems to me this is a warrant that's just heavy on a lot of housekeeping. Is that? I mean, it's a lot of articles, but it sounds like it's a lot of housekeeping issues.
Yeah, you know, there's some important things
Yeah.
being proposed, but I think, yeah, a lot of it is standard business that we would do on an annual basis.
You never know until they start lining up the microphones.
I hear you. You never know. All right, have any more questions for John or anything else, John, you wish us to know? Nope. Good, awesome. Thank you so much for getting this to us early. We look forward to more numbers and verbiage on some of the ones that are, yo, sure, go ahead, Mike.
What happened to our fence?
I'm sorry, what?
What happened to our fence
A fence?
on your logo?
Which fence?
Your town logo always had a fence. I don't know why it had a
I can't control the logo, I'm sorry. There's a lot of things that I can do, the logo's not one of them. I have all kinds of ideas, but, sorry.
That one wasn't you?
Right.
Glad that
Well,
was.
it's good that it's gone, but I was just wondering why it
I
was
see.
ever there.
You like it, but you want to know. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much, John. I
Thank you.
appreciate your time.
Thanks. How you doing? Welcome.
All right. So we have some citizens petitions. We've heard from one. I guess I plan to just go ahead and take them in order of anybody who's here to speak to them. So Article 46, a non-binding resolution on Woodlawn Mortuary Chapel. Is anybody here to speak on that article? Nope. Okay. 47, non-binding, we talked about EV. Economic feasibility analysis of affordable housing trust. Tara, number 48.
So, thank you very much for letting me speak.
Go ahead and introduce yourself just for
I'm
the official
Tara from
record.
West Acton here.
Thank you.
So, the town is obligated to provide affordable housing for people who are vulnerable. And we can either allow developers to build it and have it not be very affordable, or we can subsidize it heavily and have it be affordable. This is the third option, and this is to buy up existing units, use favorable lending mechanisms, the state agencies and/or the town, so that the units pay for themselves. So we have done the numbers. They look very promising to make this affordable for for low-income people, work in the shops, people making $50,000 a year and less, and have it be basically no or low cost to the town. I've just found out that there are significant grants for rehabilitation and preservation of naturally affordable housing, so it might actually be completely free. So this article is to get $2,500 to do a professional feasibility analysis, because although we have lots of finance experience, we have very little professional housing feasibility analysis for affordable housing feasibility now. So if we're going to come to town meeting and ask you to pass something, like the establishment of an affordable housing rehab trust, we want to have a feasibility analysis done by a professional. And we now know people who do that. So I'm working in AIR on a similar project, and this would be a similar feasibility analysis that would cost us $2,500 in AIR.
Questions?
So who is going to be responsible for this analysis?
So, for example, Matt Thal is one of the people we're working with in AIR, and he's a professional development consultant for affordable housing. And he puts together these memos and does the financial analysis, and he knows about the funding sources and where the money is and how much it'll cost. And I'm proposing that the town engage with him to do this. Now, this is a goal for the select board this year, was on one of their top goals, and it didn't happen, staff time and, money was squeezed. So we thought, well, why don't we just bring it to the voters? And if the voters vote for it, then it'll be right there with its own budget, as opposed to trying to vie for CPA money or for, internal budget money.
And once the recommendations are made, then who
Okay, that would be,
acts on it?
yes, so once the feasibility analysis is done, you mean?
Yes.
Yes, so we're proposing 2 scenarios where we keep the units and where we sell them, and we're going to bring that back to everybody and decide whether we go forward with a town meeting article to establish a affordable housing rehab trust or not. So this only commits you to the feasibility analysis. It doesn't commit you to the whole project.
Right, and when you say we, who is the we?
Well, we have a group of people who you'll see at town meeting. There's 7 or 8 of us that have been meeting. Charlie Cadillac is on the team. Chin Sung used to be when he was a select board member, and Fran is our select board liaison and is also in the group. I think Alyssa Nicole is going to be giving the presentation. And yeah, I have a finance background, so.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mike.
How is this different from the authority of and responsibility of the housing authority?
Okay, so the Housing Authority, I believe, is supportive. In fact, the numbers that we used in our preliminary analysis was from the Housing Authority on costs and things like that. But they said they don't do this work. It's troubling for them. They're a landlord, and occasionally they get involved in a big project, but they don't do this work where you take one unit and turn it over. They said that's a big take of their time, and that if a different group wants to focus on rehab, that they're supportive of it. So it's sort of not quite filling a gap, but just adding another alternative for how to create affordable housing.
Yeah, but this sounds like more than just a financial feasibility. It's aren't you also talking about management of that property and choosing who gets
yes.
Isn't that the responsibility
Yes.
of the housing authority?
Well, the feasibility analysis will determine the costs of running it themselves as a unit, as an entity. Part of the...
Running it themselves, who's themselves?
So a housing trust is a nonprofit entity that owns property, buys up property, rehabs it, rents it out.
And that trust doesn't exist today?
No. This is the economic feasibility to decide whether we want to create a trust like that. I mean, you want to know what the impact is of having a trust like
Right.
that. And you want it to be not numbers from me, right? So you hire somebody who has a history of doing that, that can point to all the costs and contractors and architects that do this work.
Yeah,
And
it makes sense, but I think there's some logistical issues and some territory issues that might be not easily resolved.
well, I believe that Bob Van Meter, he's been helping us. I believe that he's going to be standing up in favor of this, and I'm hoping that the ACHC and the AHA will actually support this as well by the time town meeting comes.
How would that trust be funded?
So there's a couple ways. One is through the borrowing authority of the town, if we so choose to do that. The state also has borrowing programs for preservation projects, and they actually have grants. In air, we're talking to DHCD about $125,000 per unit. So, you know, it's pretty exciting.
You indicated that this project, if done right, could possibly not cost the town any money.
Yep.
So I'm not hearing numbers that would allow us to buy a single property in Acton.
So we're talking about a pilot project of 5 per year in the feasibility analysis that we did collectively, like with Kelly's numbers and Bob Van Meter and everybody chipping in and looking at the numbers, because I don't like to engage in things that are too big. I like to try a little bit at a time. And so we're talking about 5 units per year for 4 years, and borrowing a chunk of money, having a line of credit to borrow for those units. And then we'll decide, you can decide after a year whether we think the program's working.
Well, so 5 per year in Acton, that's a minimum of $2.5 million. So that's a lot of borrowing,
Actually, it's 200,000 per unit.
but that's not how much houses cost.
Well, these are condo units?
So you're talking about buying existing condo
Correct.
units? I'm sorry.
Existo.
I thought you were talking about
Oh, so sorry.
standalone properties.
Nope. This is buying up condos in existing buildings. 30 to 40 of them a year are sold for 200,000 or less, according to the assessor. And I check every day, and I see 5 or 10 of them, out there. And if we don't buy them and deed restrict them, they're just going to get more and more expensive.
Right. So you're still talking about $1 million. If you-
So okay. So the feasibility analysis will determine how much, but we were looking at 5 per year with the units paying for themselves with some startup costs. So whether the startup costs come as a grant from the state or whether it's a CPC, we don't know yet. So that's why we want this feasibility analysis, so that a professional can tell us what money we can get from where, and then I can tell you how much we want from the town, if anything. And my goal is to have it no cost to the town.
Sure. Jason?
Thank you. I have 2 quick questions. The first is, so you said that Fran is the current liaison to your group from
Fran, Arsenal, yes.
Right. So would it be part of the expectation moving forward that this entity would be working hand in hand with the rest of the town for items like staying in the safe harbor for 40B?
Exactly.
And for seeing and for having appropriate negotiations around this MBTA requirement that we're going to
Correct.
talk about in the next future? Do you have a commitment from the town manager or from the select board that they're looking to take on another liaison, another responsibility for another organization?
Well, this is one of their top goals, considering this, which doing a feasibility analysis is considering it, is one of their top 10 goals this year.
So you believe you have a high likelihood, but no, you don't have a commitment at this
I
time?
believe they're going to endorse this, yeah.
My next question is, and I don't want this to sound crass, but consultants don't usually come very cheap.
I know.
Consultants come around $200 an hour minimum, more like 400 or 450. Do you really expect to be able to deliver this in 12 and a half hours worth of manpower?
Actually, it's $125 an hour with the consultant that we're working with in AIR, and we already have all the data for him. So in AIR, he charged like $3,000, and he had to go get data. We're going to hand him the data from Roland, from Kelly Cronin, from Bob Van Meter, from ACHC. We have like 90% of the data, and we're just going to give it to him to validate effectively.
And what is the work product that you expect to receive?
A report with an Excel sheet. I want to be able to play with the numbers because, I'm, believe it or not, as socially progressive as I am, I'm also fiscally conservative because if you can't afford taxes, then it's not really affordable to people of the working, lowest income, right? So I want to be able to play with it to determine rather, the risk profile of the whole thing.
Okay, thank you.
Adam?
Thanks, Tara. And so it sounds like you'd be using debt services to cover the purchases that the trust would make, and that would be debt levered by the town, is that right?
Hopefully, yes. But if you think about it, if we decide a year from now, we have 5 units and we don't like this, it's too much, we could sell those probably for more money, not only pay back the debt, but end up with extra money because the prices keep going up. So I believe that this is going to keep costs low for the town in terms of the obligation to meet its social obligation for housing. The town creates 40 to 50 units a year of new housing. That means you have to create 5 more units every year of deed restricted. And so this would do it without increasing the number of bedrooms.
So with regard to the deed restricted properties, I had a question and it just went right out the other side of my head. No, I lost it, I'm sorry.
You know where to find her.
Just going to go find my, okay, I had some points to make. I want to make sure. Yes, we have to do something or else 40B, the town is vulnerable to 40B, and then you'll get 100 units, So by keeping up with the development and doing it in a fiscally responsible manner, it both meets, climate change, social justice, and fiscal sustainability. So I feel like it's a really good triple bottom line play.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Tara. Moving on to Article 49, protecting Acton's potable water.
Oh, that's me too.
Is that, I had a feeling.
Okay, here I am. I'm still Tara from West Acton. So this one, I go to a lot of meetings, and one of the meetings that I've been attending has been the Water Resources Advisory Committee, and I also attend the EDC, and so a couple other meetings, and I was concerned that although some years ago the town had voted unanimously to conduct a water study to make sure that we have enough water, enough potable water, it's even more important now as we're discovering more and more contaminants. But the town is pressing for sewers to increase the uses for new businesses and stuff, which is a laudable goal to have more new businesses, right? But I was concerned that the potable water study had become an afterthought as an appendix to the RFP for the wastewater consultant. And so I wanted to see if town meeting want to direct the town, or at least make it said, that potable water, protecting potable water is a higher priority than expanding the uses. And that's it.
Go ahead, Adam.
So I don't know if someone has cut and pasted the wrong
I know, I
paragraph
did
in
it,
here.
I'm sorry.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's the problem. So the issue is that the only thing that matters is the motion at town meeting. So according to the lawyer, that first statement is the motion. The summary and all that stuff is just my presentation.
So the third paragraph regarding an elected planning board is
It's
not
irrelevant.
relevant to this
No, it's not
article,
relevant to
And it won't
this.
be here when it
No.
appears on tomorrow. Thank you.
It's a non-binding resolution to set the priority of the town to protecting drinking water is more important than expanding uses.
So it's an apple pie and motherhood.
Yes, it is, and I hope you'll vote yes.
Okay.
It helps me. So you pass something like this, it helps me in the meetings to remind people.
Sure.
If they're forgetting that potable water is more important.
Okay.
You have
Would
more for
like
me?
to speak to Article 50?
Which one is that?
That is
know.
land tree clearing limits
Oh,
bylaw.
okay, all right. So let me get my notes here because I was calling up things that you all said last time. And somebody said, like the Clean Water Act, which creates buffers around wetlands, is an important thing to do. The towns are enabled by state law to enact land clearing limits to create buffers around parcels of land. to prevent substantial clear cutting. I believe that such language would pass if we got to town meeting with that language. I feel like we're ready for that. The Design Review Board's been talking about it. But for us to develop the language on our own is really difficult. And so this is non-binding, so people could ignore it. But this would direct the select board to have the town council prepare such language that we could consider and have hearings and all that stuff.
Jason?
Believe that you've brought this to at least one meeting within the last 5 years. I was against it
Something
then.
like that.
I was
What?
against it then, and I'm against it now. This is taking away ownership rights from people within town. This is after the fact, after the purchase. No, I'm completely against this.
So as I had said before, if a town's fiscal responsibility includes minimizing the amount of unaffordable building or building that creates more costs to the town, I feel like there's a balance between property rights, and this would not significantly decrease what they can do with the property. It would protect neighbors, it protects the climate, it protects the town character, it protects, property values of the area.
All right. I think we understand this one, thank
okay.
you. And then you can just stay there because Article 51 is limiting negative impacts of unaffordable growth.
Yes, so this is about planning. So I have professional experience in strategic planning, and it is not happening here. I don't feel that the town planning department considers the costs to the community, our property values, the community needs for affordable housing, and to reduce climate impacts. The planning department processes developer applications. The planning department has brought zoning articles to us, which increase building. But there doesn't seem to be holistic planning going on anywhere. Master plan is over 10 years old. And so this is just to ask town meeting voters if they want the planning board to do more planning, whether they want to be more proactive in limiting the negative impacts of unaffordable growth.
Go ahead, Mike.
Some of this I could agree with, that I think planning, the actual planning has to play we'd like to see more results from the planning department. Some more having them be more proactive, forward-looking, and, 5-10 years, and even critique their old plans to see how accurate they were. I think it's a good thing.
Thank you.
If we just ask them to do their job.
That's basically it, because under the state mandate for planning boards, they're supposed to do this long list of things, and it's just not happening.
But I'm sure there's a reason why it's not getting done. Maybe there's
Well, the select board hasn't told them to,
resource issues and.
if I go to the planning board and I say, how come you're not doing planning? They say, well, the select board hasn't told us. The select board says, well, they haven't asked us to tell them. And then the planning department says, well, we're not doing it because they haven't asked us. So everybody's like this. And so, this is a direct.
Leadership issue too.
Right, so this is a town meeting saying, all right, you guys.
Okay.
Right. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Next one's the elected planning board.
Elected planning board members.
Well, that's another solution here, so I'm actually not going to be presenting this. We'll see, but it looked like somebody else is interested in presenting this. There's a lot of momentum for this, that the elected planning board is more transparency and accountability oriented. 70% of the towns in Massachusetts have elected planning boards. That way the members answer to the public and the voters, as opposed to the same people getting appointed over and over again for ease. I mean, as a person who sat behind the select board, we get 2,000 papers a week. So when the slate of people come by, we're just like, fine, and that's what happens, the same people over and over again. So at least if they want to be on it, they're going to have to answer to you first and tell you what they plan on doing and what they stand for.
Questions? Comments? Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Well, for a professional planning board, I would like to see a professional planning board, meaning licensed planners versus elected planners. I mean, because I think if you make them all elected, they could open the door to, political activists with a certain agenda that, we would live to regret.
Well, are you willing to raise taxes to pay for a
Well,
professional?
that's the question you ask for every piece of legislation.
Well, I would be happy if we had a professional planning board, and that's all they did was plan instead of process developer applications, frankly. And I certainly would be willing to support that if I decide to run for a elected planning board. I would be happy to come forward with that, because the last thing I want to do is do more work. Trust me, I would much rather direct somebody to do work, but we don't have anybody to direct because they're busy processing developer applications, because they have to process them when they come in, right? Stephen, they come in and you got 90 days, they have to do this, they have to do that. And so unless we're going to hire more people down there, we're going to have to get some more talent in.
Well, that's the issue, talent. You need qualified, maybe licensed planner, not elected. I mean, what are the criteria to be elected to the planning board?
Get my signatures.
So it's, no matter what their educational background or training, as long as they have the signatures and they get the votes.
Nope, then they're on the,
planning board.
that's right. If they're on the ballot, then you as the voters decide whether they're qualified or not. So you'll be.
How do we do that?
Well, for example, if I'm an engineer, for example, and I can read plans, I'm probably already ahead of a lot of people that are already on the board. You go to one of the meetings, the hearings, they spend 20 minutes trying to find Elm Street.
But
And it's
suppose
right
you're-
there, it says Elm Street.
Suppose you're an angry parent that's running for that position because somebody cut down a tree on your property that you didn't like, and I want to be on the planning board to prevent that.
Well, I would
Is
hope,
that person qualified?
I would hope that the voters would decide whether they're qualified or not.
Yeah, and that's my question. How do the voters determine if the person running for that office is qualified? If all they have to do is vote yes or no?
Well, right now, you have no say.
All right, any further thoughts? Okay.
Is that it?
Tara, how about Article 53 PRC 9623, number of
Okay,
dwelling
so
units?
this is the PCRC fix. Is anybody following the 22 Elm Street? Did you see my memo? Did you see the graphic?
I did open it.
You
and I
did
look
open it?
at
Okay, great. Did you notice how there's like a big pond that takes up most of the property? So the property's like this big, and the pond is like this big. And the way the PCRC calculation works, you take the whole parcel and you divide it by 20,000 or 40,000, depending on what zoning district it is, and that's how many houses you get. So with the PCRC, that developer could have fit 14 houses on this little section over here, but he decided to only build 8. In a regular subdivision, that would have been 2 or 3 houses. So you effectively got 5 more houses times 5 more bedrooms than you would have normally gotten. So I'm proposing taking out the wetlands. The architects told me that that would be a good fix. So bringing that forward as a possibility. There are 2 versions of this because the town attorney suggested some way to, a way to word it that might be a little better. So we're waiting for the town attorney to choose which one. If they both get enacted, they don't conflict. So it's just to remove the wetlands from the PCRC calculation. They can't build on ponds. So why are we letting them build a whole lot more houses in the corner?
Okay.
So just to make sure I'm clear, you're saying that currently, under the rules, if you have a 1-acre property and fully 50% of it is protected by wetlands, they can still count that 50%?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on that? All right,
Great, thank you very much.
thanks, Tara. Okay. Do you have another question, or are you good?
So you say the PCRC is another one, Article 56.
All right, well, I'm going in order, so she'll have to come back. Anybody here to speak to Article 54, which is amend zoning map 32 Weatherby Street? Nope.
Well, I can speak against
I think,
No, but that's,
I think
build 10 times more houses there.
you can speak against it at town meeting, that would be great. And then we have Article 55, non-binding resolution, mobilizing Acton's climate action plan. Mr. Snyder Grant. Nice to see you.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
Yeah, Jim Snyder Grant. Sometimes I wear a select board hat, but that's not the hat I'm wearing today. I'm part of the Acton Climate Coalition, which is about 35 different organizations in Acton that initially came together to put together the climate emergency declaration that passed overwhelmingly at the 2020 town meeting. And this is a follow-up. Sometimes with non-binding petitions, you guys don't take a position, which I think would be a fine thing to do. But if you would like to talk about it, I wanted to highlight a couple of things in here. The basic intent of the warrant article is to allow the members of town meeting to express their sense of the relative priority of doing climate work, which they apparently think is very important, and I want to support that. We are in a climate emergency, and it's hard to know what one person can do. It's hard to know even what one town can do. I think the approach we're taking in Acton is a good one, which is we're trying to be in a leadership position so that we can inspire other towns, we can inspire people in town, and we can and inspire the state also to get their act together. On the other hand, we know that the scale of what we need to do is so large that we're only going to have success if there is significant ongoing state support, federal support, international cooperation. So there's language in here that explicitly says in the therefores that, let me pull out the language here exactly. The town will seek the diverse funding sources that will be required, emerging state, federal grants and incentives, and prioritize non-local funding before using substantial new municipal resources. I think we've seen the town staff do a really good job, not just in the climate area, but in lots of areas to try to figure out where to get outside support and grants, and that's going to be key to doing anything real on climate. I think that's probably the key thing in here that's about finances. This is basically an article that says, hey, we're creating a climate action plan, let's support it.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Snyder Grant? Mike?
Yes, I have definite concerns about the fossil fuel position and how it would affect some Acton employers, like Hartz Corporation, for example. If, I think they would argue with you about their emissions by their standards, and government standards are pretty clean.
Mm-hmm.
By Acton standards, there are toxic fumes that are killing everyone. And I think, there's a risk, if that company wants to expand, and they're very busy, that, that expansion would occur in South Carolina versus Acton, Massachusetts. And, we would be driving them out of business because that's a good thing, because they use natural gas in their production. And I just think that's an overreach. I think it's a misunderstanding of, and I think it's an exaggeration of the damage that specific fossil fuels are doing in specific environments. I just think it's overreach and hysteria in some parts of this document. And it's like one size does not fit all. There have to be, they're condemned to basically go out of existence in Acton because of the amount of the type of energy they need to produce their product. And I don't think that's fair, that's not right, and it's probably not good science, in my opinion.
Thanks. Happy to respond if that's helpful, or not. What would you like a response?
Sure.
Okay. So the bylaw that it was passed by town meetings about new construction and major rehab. So there's not going to be within Acton a bylaw that says if you've got an existing building and you're using fossil fuels, you have to stop. That would be overreach. I think eventually the world eventually needs to reach that place. But I don't think that's going to be Acton's place to do that. I mean, as you said, if there are vital industrial processes that need to happen, the emissions in Acton or the emissions in South Carolina are going to be the same. So there's no reason to chase them out of town. The folks at Hartz do an amazing job of capturing what they can of the emissions they put out. It's a big part of the operation there to pay attention to what they're emitting, and I think they're doing a great job. I got no reason to want to kick them out of town.
My concern there is that they have been visited by representatives from the town that addressed that very issue, and their concern was the natural gas that they use, and they wanted it stopped.
I'm not aware of that visit.
Yeah, I can probably come up with a name.
Okay,
I just
great.
heard it last week. We'll get that back to you.
Great, good.
Jason?
As much as it pains me to agree with Mr. Majors, I do want to call out your own language in your own resolution where you're saying, we'll set and revise as necessary annual goals. And two sentences later, or later on in that sentence, electrification of privately owned and municipal buildings such as the retrofit of the public safety facility. So the way that's written, you have called out the public safety facility in the same breath as privately owned buildings. If you are able to set and revise on an annual basis new climate action plans, you are asking for the authority to be able to come back every year and reset your expectation of existing structures. This is too broad a power. I'm not comfortable at all with this level of carte blanche.
Yeah, the kind of goals we might be coming up with were, how many buildings might be able to electrify during the course of the year? Can we bring support to help building owners that want to electrify? Regulating, standards of existing buildings is a matter of the building code. We do get a chance every few years to accept a stretch building code, but it's not going to be within the town's authority, even if it's in a non-binding resolution, to tell a particular building owner they have to stop using fossil fuels.
We're talking about new construction.
Yeah, the bylaw that's that the town meeting has passed is about new construction and major rehab,
Okay,
yes.
by my same argument, if Hartz wanted to expand, say double in size or 25% or whatever, that would be considered new construction, but they wouldn't be allowed to use natural gas as an energy source?
No, the bylaw we passed has an appeal process and a waiver process. So they'd be going to the building commissioner and they'd say, this is our use, there's no alternative that's financially feasible, and the building commissioner would look that up and go, oh, you're right.
Or not?
Or not, yeah, but Tommy, he's gonna be sensible.
Steve?
All right. Before we all grab our muskets and meet on the green, this is a non-binding resolution. So let's just Why don't we wait for town meeting on this one?
All right, real quick, since I have you in front of me, do you, in your capacity here, representing the Green Acton Initiative, have an opinion on the charging stations bylaw change that came up earlier about asking for new apartment complexes to have a percentage of their parking spaces include electric charging stations?
Yeah, so that, as I recall, that resolution has two parts, right? There's one about encouraging electric chargers in existing multifamilies, and then there's the other one about, having the planning board construct a bylaw that would require them in new multifamily construction. Yeah, I think it's a good direction to go in. There's some important puzzles that have to be worked out. Brookline is in the middle of constructing a bylaw like this, and for places that have enclosed parking, there are some concerns about the off-gassing by chargers, and whether having that in an enclosed space is a good idea. It may not even be legal to the building code. So, but these are the kinds of issues that would come out, and when the planning department creates new bylaws, they look at existing bylaws and understand what's sensible.
Sure. Okay, thank you. I was just curious. I appreciate your time.
Mhm.
And
Thanks.
enjoy your evening. All right, almost done here. Are we back to Tara? Yeah. Okay, so the PCRC number of dwellings, do we need to speak to that, or rest covered? Okay. Article 57, changing the state flag and seal. Hi, welcome. Thank you. You can introduce yourself. Take it
I'm
away.
Lindsay Hurley. I'm also from Half Moon Hill. We've had quite a showing tonight in my neighborhood. This resolution is really just, it should be simple. It's just to nudge the state to move forward on something that has already been passed. In 2020, they did pass a resolution to adopt a new state flag and seal. And they set aside a special commission to do it, but then the pandemic came and it was set aside and nothing's been done on it. So this is just a request by the town to say, this is what we've done, let's move forward on it. There are many other towns in the Commonwealth who have passed similar resolutions. And so it certainly has no financial bearing, but it seems pretty simple to me. Any questions?
Well, now I want to see the new state flag. It's already designed and?
No,
Oh,
the
I
commission was set up. I mean, I think that's the challenge, is
I see.
where to go, how to design, what to do. And so it's not going to be a completely simple process.
Right.
And that's probably why they've taken so long to get moving on it.
Okay, so for Acton, there would be no cost because we're just asking them to move forward with something they've already resolved to do.
Exactly.
I see, okay. Does anybody have any questions about this? Okay, excellent.
All right.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming to our whole meetings so you
Thank
can
you.
speak to your article. I appreciate it. All right. Awesome. That wraps up our preview of the draft of the Acton Town Warrant, and yes, went faster than some people thought it would. And now, yes. Do you have a pen?
I don't. Can somebody hand me a pen? Thank you.
We're pens, we've got pen, excellent. Okay, so, Mr. Walsh, for our town meeting, everybody ends up taking a few warrant articles and goes and kind of investigates them. I mean, we've gotten a lot of information about a lot of them, but there's still some things to learn. And then at a subsequent meeting, we will all go through them one at a time and discuss them any further, and then vote on whether or not we recommend that the article. We do not recommend the article, or we make no recommendation on the article. So if something maybe has no monetary value, some of us feel that there's no need to stick our toe in the water. Some like to vote on all the articles, and so we just see how those go. So at this point, we're going to divvy these up, and you and Avi, even though he's not here, and others will all take some. We all get some homework, is basically what I'm saying.
So basically, people who are absent get,
Whatever's the
get
worst.
15 of them?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to be sad he left early.
Right? Okay, so we don't need to do anything with 1, 2, and 3, right? This is true. Town operating budget, we already approved. Town capital infrastructure, vehicle studies. Does anybody want it? Roland.
Christine, I'll take 5, 6.
Okay.
Sorry, Roland took 6 and 7 as
Am I
well?
top, is it?
6 and 9.
Oh,
So we already approved.
Okay, so you're right. We still need somebody to speak to the town operating budget?
And that's you.
And Jason's saying that I have to do that, so fine. And then the Acton Boxborough Regional School
gee, aren't
District
you the
Assessment?
liaison to the
No,
school?
actually, it's
committee?
Isha.
Oh,
So Isha,
so you get that
we're
one.
going to give you that one. You get to speak to that. You don't have to say much.
Who's got Minuteman? Is it Mr. Majors?
Mike, you'd like the Minuteman,
Sure.
I assume? All right, and then home rule petition bidding requirement exemptions for affordable housing project. Anybody? Dave, so Dave, is that Dave? Archaeology bylaw? I am curious. There is a whole presentation, so go and enlighten us.
Yeah, I recommend watching the select board meeting on that one.
Okay, am I going to be sad I haven't raised my hand right now?
No, no, but you'll get greater understanding immediately by watching that.
Annual town election and town meeting dates, that's a gimme. Steve, you want that lovely, Steve Noon, that is. Stormwater revolving funds? Is that, all right, that's Dave.
He loves those.
Right? Christie's would like the revised street layout, but Mr. Majors, I assume you would like the Community Way to Carroll Spinney Way, because you are a big fan of Mr. Big Bird. Steve Walsh, how do you feel about looking into the floodplain overlay district?
It was only 463
It's
pages.
no problem. It looked very small. It looked like all the information was given to us.
Please make sure they draw all the map lines exactly to scale. Thank you.
Terminology of the select board, I mean, I'll do that one. Correction to solar installation, cross-reference, this is a housekeeping, actually, I'm sorry, we are in consent items, that's fine. We still have to, you're right, we still have to have somebody, all right, anybody want that particular? What? Fine. Okay, Jason can have that. And accept payments via direct deposit, very exciting, Jason, you can have that one too.
I like to take the easy ones.
Land lease 20 Maple Street, does anybody have any
That one's going to come up.
feelings?
That one's going to get.
You want that? All right, we'll give that one to Mike. Accept gift of land easement. Jason, you want all of these kind of like gimmies?
I don't want that one.
You don't want that one? Excellent.
I'll take it.
Yeah, that's right, you haven't done anything yet. Let's get you in here.
Nope.
Home rule petition, public safety, residency radius requirement. Do we want to give that?
I'll take it.
To Adam? And collective bargaining.
I'll take all of
well,
those
think
since I took
Steve-
the one above it, or Steve?
Steve-
Oh, you're going to
Steve
take all
usually
those?
takes all
Okay.
of those.
So do you want the radius one as well?
No.
Okay.
It's different. It's different. Commuter lot and station maintenance, if anybody, it's typically Dave, yep. And also the septic enterprise.
So hang on, so
That's-
last year I took the commuter lot and all of the.
Well, because you took all the enterprise funds.
Right,
Do
and.
you want them again?
I recommend that group for any of our new members. It's a great way to get in touch with at least one piece of what's going on in town. I'm happy to do them again, but I'm also.
Yeah, I was just going to say, do you want to split them between Avi and Mr. Walsh here?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
So let's put,
These are,
SW and
it's really a
AP.
learning, there's not a lot to dig into there, but.
I
it's-
will hold your hand on that.
In fact, you'll just go to Adam and he'll tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah, last year, Mr. Barrett was kind enough to hold my hand. That's going to go from number 28 all the way to number 32.
He'll divvy them up. You'll get an email that'll list which ones, but you're gonna get a couple of those. And that's the revolving funds budget is different.
I would be interested in that if somebody else doesn't have a, okay.
Alrighty, it is yours.
See, I'm just moving my way down the list.
Right? All right, authorized easements. That's a gimme. Jason,
Which one was that?
that's just
What street?
the
Anyway,
typical authorization, pre-authorization to accept easements. So
Oh,
that they don't
oh.
need a town meeting every time. 35 is Roland. Insurance,
Don't forget Dave Reinhoff.
oh, we've been handing things over.
insurance, isn't that Christie?
Yeah, we'll give that to Christie. I think that's definitely Christie. Yeah.
3738 I want.
Yeah.
I want a-
We assumed,
A statement.
37 and 38?
Yeah, I'll take them both, just because I don't know which one the
Alright.
town council's gonna come in.
I'll take 3940.
Okay. All right. Now we get into
Tuesday.
the next day. Home rule petition, legal notice, media requirements. That is,
so hold on a minute.
Yep.
What if half of us took all the ones on one day and the other half took all the ones for the other day and we didn't all come to both meetings?
that's cute. You're going to the meetings.
Okay, great. Just
We all
thought
have
I'd
to
ask.
suffer together.
Just thought I'd ask.
That's true. We do need to have a quorum.
Half of us plus Christine.
Yeah, I see what you did there.
Yeah, I like that.
Oh, I was gonna give it to Christie. You want it?
Okay, no, give it.
Give it to Christie. All right, Christie can take the home rule petition 41. Anybody want the polystyrene and disposable plastic reduction? Because if I take it, I'm gonna,
You'll get a reputation.
I'm gonna do what I do, which is,
I think you did a great job.
I think you should do what you do on this one.
which
Are you gonna like make a suit out of polystyrene?
I might point out all the holes in it, and then they're gonna vote for it anyway.
I'm used to that.
So I'll take
So
the,
you'll take
yeah, I'll
the
take the
bag
checkout
charge.
bag one too.
So now you're a bag lady.
That's the role we have, it's not in the bylaw.
All right. All right, setbacks for reconstruction within historic districts. Any feelers? It does sound like, it sounds very, he really cares about the historic district, that Dave.
He's always done accessory apartments.
Accessory apartments? Sorry, who?
Dave,
You,
he did it the last 2
oh, did he? All right, well,
He
sure,
did?
then we'll give it to Dave again. All right. Woodlawn Chapel alterations. That one's interesting because
That
it
is
was,
an interesting
it was
one.
supposed to be a thing and then it got pulled.
And it's a private entity as well.
Yeah, so I'm
Or
very
it's
interested to try to get those people to come and talk to us.
So did CPC approve the funding for it?
So CPC pulled it from their list. I think Dean was saying they pulled it from their list because the
Because of their thinking-
descendant of the family didn't want the changes once they heard what was being changed for ADA compliance.
So if it's being pulled from the CPC, is this going to get pulled from the meeting?
Well, this is a citizen's petition. It's not. So we need to
It
have.
could be contentious.
We need to understand why it is now a citizen's petition and who it's coming from and what the goal is. So
I can take that one.
Jason's going to take that one and hopefully maybe get somebody to come to our meeting and talk to us about it, or,
Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
all right. Electrical vehicle charging capacity in multifamily properties.
I'll take that.
Adam. Economic feasibility analysis of affordable housing trust. Awesome. He did, it's great. I like this. let's give Avi another. Non-binding resolution protecting Acton's potable water.
Sounds like Avi.
It does, doesn't that sound like Avi? Avi's great. Not here, but we like him. Land and/or tree clearing limits bylaw?
One of the two new people, because they're going to be talking to Tara about him anyway.
This, you take that, all right, thank you. Thank you very much. Negative impacts of unaffordable growth. That's a, do we want to,
I vote Isha.
you vote, oh, Isha took that one, look at her. That's true, I don't have her name on here very much, so.
Thank you, Isha.
School board thing. That's a big one.
That's true.
A lot of money, but it's one cent.
It'll be, and it's voted on in a heartbeat. Elected planning board. I feel like that one's, needs some looking into. Anyone?
I think Mike Majors has that written all over him.
He does have feels about it. All right, Mike.
I will be open and honest.
Yes. And then the 2 PCRC dwelling bylaw, is one of those going away? Am I missing?
Yeah, it's going to be one or the other.
It's going to be one or the other, okay. Or,
I got the top and choose, the town has not chosen, so they both have to be voted upon. If they're both voted upon, they're not conflicting, so it's fine.
I'll take them both.
all right, Adam, thank you. Weatherby Street,
Now, that's an interesting one. Didn't we have that 2 years ago?
This sounds
I
familiar.
don't think it's the same property.
I think it was. We'll have to look, but I think it was.
Oh, Mike says it is.
and what is this one
I
again?
had it last time.
Yeah,
Take
and
it again.
my recollection was you reached out to the petitioner last time and never heard back.
That sounds about right, so I can take it again.
Do you want to do it
Okay.
again?
I think Christie wants to talk about mobilizing Acton's climate action plan, unless anybody else wants, yeah, good, okay. And support of changing the state flag. I'll look into that, sure, I'll take that one. I'll finish this off there.
Okay, so the numbers might not be
Oh, we don't look for
even,
equity
but we
here.
can, there is a aftermarket trading program.
This is true, that's
Yeah.
a thing.
Some
like it.
Bitcoins are
As long
worth
as-
more than others.
As long as,
Is it after market closes or is it a pre-market?
as long as somebody comes.
Okay,
Okay,
you have to,
yes, ma'am.
for the benefit of the new members, can you explain what needs to be done?
Yes, so, yeah. So typically, we find the sponsor, in the book, it should say who the sponsor is, email them, reach out, and ask for more details. And then when we have a complete understanding, and they might, if it's Mangiarotti, he might say, well, here, talk to this person, or whatever. When we have a complete understanding of what the article is gonna cost, is what we're really interested in, the financial impact on the town, kind of the pros and cons, then in our follow-up meeting, you would present that information to us. And then we would, based on what you have found, vote on whether, on how we feel about the article. Yeah, it's never very, it's often just a quick blurb. I mean, obviously, some things are, require more time, but it's usually a quick statement about what you found. I took a dog law one year, and I happened to find that another town had been sued because of a certain dog incident, and that was why we had done it, and it was a really quick explanation, and everyone, oh, okay, and then, we voted on it. So at town meeting, when we're actually like up on the stage and they present, they will read off the language of the article that the town will be voting on, then they'll ask the select board how they voted, and the select board member can choose to just simply say, we voted to recommend, or if they have a thought about it, a very short statement about why they voted, or that they all voted unanimously, or however they want to do that. And then we do the same thing. So you as the member would simply say, Madam Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends this article, or does not recommend this article, or whatever. And then if we had strong feels about it, maybe a statement as to what that was.
Yeah, town meeting recommendations are usually limited to about 2 minutes.
Yes.
And things on consent usually Not at all.
Right, so, do you know what the consent agenda is? So everything on here that has an asterisk, and that's a lot of things. It's a lot of this meeting, that's why I said it's heavy on kind of routine business. So the moderator will say, we're now going to accept the consent agenda items, and then she will literally list them off, and anybody in the audience for any article can say, hold. And then she'll continue to list them off, and everything that isn't held, we actually vote on in a block, and so they're not gonna ask our recommendation in between those. We just vote them all in a block. And then we only will be asked to speak to the ones that are pulled out. Did I, good, okay.
Yeah, basically, the hell it is, because it has more than one person.
Yes, that's true. There has to be a second person to hold.
Can I add a,
I kind of hold that FEMA one, there's a bunch of people that are going to second that.
Which one?
The FEMA map.
Good to know.
can I just add a little bit more for the new members, since I'm the next newest member? Be sure and pick through each warrant wording, word by word. Look for things that seem like obvious legal problems. Look for anything that binds the town to paying money, because we need to speak to that. I can tell you from my experience that I have found, I've taken articles in the past that didn't make a lot of sense to me, so when I reached out to the article promoter, or what's the word that we use for the person?
The sponsor.
Sponsor, realized that the article didn't say what it meant, and was actually able to help those people word those in a way that I could understand it, so then the town could understand it. One of those warrants had come up, I think, 2 out of the 3 previous years, and had been voted down because it didn't make sense, and then once we got it in a way that it made sense, it passed. So, yeah, just use some common sense and pick through the wording and look for obligations.
And we won't vote on anything that doesn't have the final dollars. And sometimes it's late to getting us those final language or the final dollars. And the warrant will go to press, and there'll just be a blank spot. And then even on the night of town meeting, we will meet before town meeting, and there will be items that we will likely vote because we will finally have the final language. And then we just make our recommendation in the meeting.
See Articles 23 through 26 with collective bargaining agreements, which never get agreed to until 3 hours before town meeting.
That's true. Okay, so do you feel good? Feel good? Awesome, excellent, and obviously feel free to reach out and any other questions. Okay, I'm gonna move on to FinCom business. We do have one set of minutes. Those minutes are definitely somewhere around here for January 25th, 2022, and I'm sure you have all reviewed them carefully. I will accept a motion.
I move to accept the minutes.
And I have a second. Second. Excellent. All those in favor of approving the minutes of January 25th, 2022, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Great. Any update needed on POV presentations?
Went well, wasn't a lot of questions, and then Christie's like, you better go to get to the meeting. And then she said, I'll handle any questions that came up, and they asked her one question. I have no idea what it was, because I was trying to get out the door. So that was that. And then my other new business update is DPW study committee meets tomorrow.
Okay. Are you asking or are you saying?
No, I'm saying,
Oh.
we'll meet tomorrow night.
Oh, great, excellent. Well, I look forward to hearing how that goes. This is their first meeting?
Yeah, well, we've had one other meeting before, and then we had the tour,
Yeah.
and we saw the conditions, and they need a new facility.
Well,
To a certain degree.
I was kind of hoping to attend that meeting if I can, but then I remember in our discussion about updates to the OML laws that if 2 of us go to a same meeting, do we have to elect a subcommittee and report minutes on that?
No, you can go and observe the meeting tomorrow night, because I am on the committee.
yeah.
Got it.
He's there at a different capacity.
Thank you.
You can go as a interested member of the town.
Got it. But I can't go as an interested member of FinCom.
I think
Or
you
can I?
can because he's on the committee.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
As far as I understand, that's what I would think.
It's funny, my impression after that tour was they made it clear how well they were making things work. And obviously, we saw some space issues,
I think,
but it wasn't clear to me from that tour how we got to a $30 million project plan.
Well, I think that was the whole facility.
It would-
So, I mean, it's obviously going to be different than what we think, and I think they just need more office space, or better configured office space.
Sure.
And a better configured garage area.
Yep.
Then the other pieces should fall into place, I would think. But
I'm just saying,
you know,
from my perspective from the tour,
Yeah.
I didn't get the impression that that was even what was being looked for,
Right.
was a full campus overhaul.
Yeah, it was a full campus was the other one, yeah.
They do have feral cats.
Did you happen to read the 85-page, or however, maybe it was 185-page, I can't remember now,
Every-
report?
No.
So it actually outlined a number of different alternative building plans from, I think, around 13 million up to 32 million. So there were many different alternatives.
Okay. Sorry, we did off track. Anything else on POV, Jason?
There is, the only other POV that's planned is the 27th for Douglas, yep, which I believe is Dave Wellinghoff and Mr. Walsh.
Excellent. And so that is not a meeting night.
That is not a
We
meeting
will-
night, so we can go back to
We can go
7:30.
back to our 7:30 start time, which would be great. Please keep in mind that we will likely meet we will be meeting the 26th. We will likely also meet on the 3rd. And my guess is the 3rd and the 10th, because those are I mean, right up until town meeting.
I think the warrant goes to press on the 2nd. So if we want to get recommendations in, the 3rd's not going to,
No, it has to
Do
be
it.
it has to be the 26th, April 26th, which is our next meeting, and I cannot meet. I mean, you all are welcome to meet next week. I will be in San Juan.
I also cannot meet next week.
So I don't
There you
think
go.
we can do that. Right, so all of our recommendations that will be printed in the warrant are going to have to be for the 26th, so please do as much of your homework as possible, though obviously constrained by final language.
and if I may, we will also need to write a warrant message, or you will need to write a warrant message.
I actually
Madam
started
Chair.
that.
I'm still very concerned about the way the ALG out years look. And, you know, it's nice that we had a bunch of people saying, well, we need to inform the town meeting members about this and that and about the future, but we're not accounting for inflation. And that,
Yeah, and I did speak to the town manager about, and I think there is going to be a move to do a quick assembly of ALG
Okay.
to agree to change some of the outlying factors. A really short one, so hopefully that gets scheduled soon. Okay, all set on POV? Okay, excellent. And then liaison reports. Anything down this end of the table? No, this end of the table? Oh, good, excellent, good, awesome. Anything else anybody needs to talk about? Great. I would I know, I would entertain a motion from Mr. Walsh. I'll take that. Did I hear a second? Excellent. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Great work, everybody. Thank you very much.
You're going to give me a ride, right?
Yeah, I'll give you a ride home.